Hello and welcome to the Eclipse Evolution podcast. I'm your host, Savannah Rose. Thank you so much for joining me today on this very special episode. It is the 2-year anniversary of this podcast. So thank you so much for everyone who's been listening from the very start. Thank you everyone who's tuning in for the first time and everyone in between. So I'm very happy to celebrate with you, very happy to do some reflection with you, and also share with you some updates about what's going on now and what you can look forward to coming in the future. So thank you so much again for tuning in. So I started this podcast in 2023. As some of you know, I was going through a very major life transition in my career. I was just leaving the corporate world, severely burnt out, severely crushed in spirit, recovering from physical health issues due to the burnout. As some of y'all know, what kind of my wake up call was not just realizing that I had lost 20, 30 something pounds, but also being covered head to toe in stress psoriasis blisters. That was super painful, scary experience, but ultimately it's our body's way of communicating to us like when enough is enough, and we all have our limits. And I've been hearing the knock on the door to make that change for some time, and my body finally opened that door. So creating this podcast was something that has always been a dream of mine, and it really started from this place of me being at one of the lowest points of my life, just spiritually, mentally, happiness wise, as well as identity. I think at that point in time, I had been taking on and expanding so much of my identity to fit the corporate world, or shrinking parts of myself to fit the corporate world. And that included shrinking my voice and shrinking my connection to myself and desires. And this podcast has been such a huge catalyst in me finding my voice again, and also just processing a lot of my journey that I've been on since then. As a lot of y'all know, my episodes last year were very much in reflection of another giant life transition, and that was leaving the unhealthy relationship that I was in, calling off an engagement and everything. And it is so interesting to me how there were so many parallels between that overriding of my body's communication, overriding of all the red flags, and making myself small, and how this podcast again was such a huge catalyst for me to find my voice again, find my identity again, and feel empowered. So again, thank you for those who've tuned in. Thank you for kicking off this new year with me, and I can't wait to celebrate with you. And I'm just so grateful for all the growth that I've been able to achieve during these past couple years. And I'll be completely honest with you, it has not been pain-free or stress-free. I think that's something really important to recognize about the healing process, and the growth process, is that it's not a comfortable thing all the time. It's not something that always feels good either. I think a lot of times when we're growing or even healing, it means being in the fetal position crying on work, being super stressed and like wanting to pull your hair out because you're just not sure what to do next. And I just want to be honest with you, I've had a lot of those moments. And they're necessary for part of the growth process, because I think it's when we come up against those what feel like walls of not knowing the next turn to make, really those are the growth edges, and those moments of fear or doubt or uncertainty. That's how we know we're moving into new terrain. And that's just something I want to emphasize, because I'm very much in this place of my life where I'm moving into new terrain. I'm very grateful for what the terrain is. It feels very aligned with my heart's desires in many ways. But I will tell you, I've had to do a whole lot of the other side of the spectrum of growing. to get to this point, and I still have moments where I have to confront those challenging feelings. But just so you know, you're not alone in your process of navigating changes or trying to decide what you want to do next, where you want to go next. And I would say what I've been really learning during this process has been just how to not just explore what I can do in the world, but explore who I am in the world, and exploring and embracing and accepting that full spectrum of who I am. I know I went into this a little bit in my previous episode, my most recent one that started off this new season. When it comes down to authenticity, it's essential to be able to express the full side of yourself and not um, mask depending on who you're around or what you're doing. But that takes a ton of courage. It takes a lot of, I would say, confronting the fear of rejection. Um, because a lot of times when we are trying to be who we think the other person wants us to be, a lot of times, I mean, not only are we running away from ourselves or abandoning our true selves in that moment, but we are a lot of times acting from this place of fear of rejection. Because if we put on this mask and that mask is rejected, we're safe. But if we like show up as our true selves and that our true selves is what's rejected, that's going to be the painful thing. And as humans, like we're wired to hate rejection. I mean, for a long time it really was like a matter of life and death if we were rejected, because if we were cast out of our civilization or our tribe or our village or excommunicated, we did starve. Like we did not mate and pass on our DNA, like, and continue life. It would be really hard. So we're still as humans like wired to not want to be rejected. And I think with that awareness, we can work through it to where we live in a modern society now that, while kind of chaotic at the moment, we can always come home to ourselves and create a safe space within ourselves. And I think that truly is the key to showing up and going out into the world, is making our inner world the one that's truly safe. So I know for myself, I mean, this has been showing up in, like I said, many different ways, whether this is in my career and trying new things, such as tapping more into like my musical side, or even performing in front of people, which I haven't really done that live before in front of an audience. I mean, here I am, I'm very comfortable, as you can tell, talking to my screen. But I think getting in front of people and speaking or singing has definitely been a growth edge for me, but one that, on the other side of that fear or nervousness, has been so much euphoria, so much expression, so much freedom of expression, and also just getting in touch with another side of myself and being able to share that with others. It's been truly special, truly remarkable, and I'm very grateful. And it is just so interesting to me how just a couple years ago, in starting this podcast, I was struggling to use my voice. It would shake when I would speak, if I was coming up against like a authority figure, or like a, I would say, perceived authority figure, or like someone that I loved or cared about, and like being afraid, or even just censoring what I was going to say, because out of fear of losing their love, or out of fear of making them angry, or whatever it was, to now being able to not just speak my truth and speak it in a way where I'm not anticipating someone else's reaction, or um, changing how I'm showing up to anticipate a certain reaction from someone, or even control a certain reaction from someone, going way beyond that to the point where I'm using my voice to make art and to connect with people and to collaborate with people. It's truly remarkable, and I'm very excited. So again, thank you for being here with me on this journey. And to be completely honest, I feel like I'm still kind of excavating what my next steps are. I mean, right now I'm working on my next book, poetry book. is my last one that I published back in 2019. Covered pretty much like from my life, from childhood all the way up until that point in my life. So this book, I'm kind of picking up where I left off to some extent, and carrying it all the way to where I am today and where I want to go as well. So I'm really excited about that. Writing has always been this tool, this catalyst for me, to not just like channel my inspirations and channel my thoughts, but also to like process my experience and to let out some feelings that otherwise maybe I wouldn't have a chance to express, or maybe I don't have any desire to express to someone. It's a way that I can still let my truth be known on the pages and get it out of my body. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's also this book, there's a lot that's in there that is celebrating what I've been able to cultivate, especially the new love in my life. That's something that has been a huge focus for me these past few months, is um, just really being present and participating in this new partnership that I have with an amazing man. And that's something I'm so grateful for. And it's very evident of all the healing and introspection I've been able to do. Because don't get me wrong, there's still moments in like this intimate relationship where I come up against those very same growth edges, or very same moments of discomfort where I realize like, oh, I'm still healing on this or that. Luckily, like, he's a very patient man and very supportive, so I'm able to just feel very safe when I need to communicate things to him. Um, but a lot of the work I've been also just doing on my own, like for myself too, to just be able to better receive the love that he's giving me, and not be skeptical of it, or scared of it, or what have you. So that's something that has also just been a huge journey for me lately. But it's been a really fun few months lately as we've been traveling more, going to shows together as he's performing, and being able to scratch some different creative itches, doing whether it's like photography or cinematography, and being able to collaborate and have these moments of just using my other skills that I haven't really been able to use in a long time. That's been super special, and it's been wonderful being able to support him as well. And I'm super grateful too for the work that I continue to do with Playboy. I just finished an interview with them that will be published soon, probably after this podcast is released. So stay tuned for that. Um, and I'm just very grateful for the chance to grow with that brand and to continue to have this avenue of self-expression and monetary benefits as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, so to speak. And I would say that that has been a huge milestone for me as well in my self-exploration too, because I think when I began this work, just really diving more into modeling and this very like sexually expressive creative work, it has been super healing and cathartic, but also helped me realize how much healing I've also been needing to do as well. Because for so long, having like shut down that side of myself out of due to like trauma, or just needing to protect myself, so to speak, or just not feeling safe to express that part of myself or even be connected to my desires in that way. It's been really amazing being able to have full autonomy over that, and not just connect with my pleasure, but be able to benefit from it in a very material way. So that's something that I'm super grateful for. And I think that overall, like, I like this, I would say being a model is very much less like a job sometimes, and very much like who I am. And with that, I've had to learn how to balance like the whether it's like frequency, or have different boundaries as well, because I know some of my boundaries have shifted a little bit now that I'm in a committed partnership, just trying to be really mindful of my energy and where it's going, and making sure that I am not stretching myself too thin, or keeping certain sides of myself very like private and sacred, but and also like getting to still have this avenue where I feel empowered and independent, and able to create something just because I enjoy doing it. So that's something that has also been just such an interesting part of my journey. And I think that what has been kind of surprising for me lately has been surprising, but also not surprising. But I think um, it has been a bit of a lantern when it comes down to my next steps, because, of course, when it comes down to um, like whether it's my work with Playboy or my work with my magazine, those are more projects that are dedicated towards like the male gaze and the male consumer. Um, However, what has been really fun for me and kind of surprising for me has been the attraction and feedback I've been receiving and support that I've been receiving from other women when it comes down to how those projects and how I show up online or even in person, whether it's through dancing or performing or whatever it is, the feedback I'm receiving from women and how it has, in some ways, given them permission to explore them sides, like those sides of themselves. And that's something I am so tickled about and grateful for, because I love that I'm able to inspire other women to connect with those parts of themselves, um, and get curious about what their desires are, and get curious about their pleasure and how they can explore the full spectrum of who they are. And that I'm realizing more and more that that's very much a part of my mission right now, at least, is to almost, I would say, like lead by example in some ways, um, where I think like when we see other people doing things, whether we do them in our own way, that's besides the point. But when we see other people living their life authentically and not fearing what people are going to think, or catering to the masses, so to speak, then it kind of gives us permission to think about how we ourselves can show up in that same way, with that same kind of energy, that very unapologetically authentic um, way. And that's such a gift that we give ourselves, and also a gift that we give the world. And I would say, almost like double-edged sword that's come with it has been that not everyone has been ready to um, receive that kind of energy either. I think that's something I'm learning about myself, is that this medicine that I bring to the world in how I show up, some people are ready for it. Some people are ready to be inspired by it and let it, like I said, like give them that permission to show up as their full selves. And I think the people who maybe find that medicine to be a little bitter are the ones that maybe haven't given themselves permission yet to do that, or haven't fully accepted and come to a place of self love with certain parts of themselves. Um, and so those are the folks that maybe are like triggered by what I'm doing, or perhaps like are intimidated or jealous. And this is not just women. I want to be clear about that. I've also had this show up in, I would say, like male friendships, or even just male um, counterparts or creative partners, or folks that before I had my wonderful partner, like folks who were maybe trying to pursue me romantically, that could not, uh, I would say, like fully step into their king energy because they just weren't ready for the initiation that is being with a woman in her full power and her full expression, and who's not going to apologize for that or make herself small for that. I mean, granted, I'm a very accommodating, conscious, thoughtful partner, um, But I would say some of these guys that were like pursuing me last year that either I had to like cut things off or like just gradually faded away, whatever you want to call it. The pattern I've seen with them has been like the initial interest is there, but I think the like I said, like the initiation piece is alluring, but I think when it comes down to the inner work that's sometimes required to sustain a connection with me is something that not everyone is like ready to do, which is fine and totally normal. And it's something I've had to learn to not take personally either. At first, it was kind of confusing, but then I started to realize more and more like, oh, this I'm not doing anything wrong. I not to sound like I'm not taking accountability, but like sometimes me just existing and I don't even realize I'm triggering people. That's something I've kind of had to come to terms with. Like the way my partner put it was like you're not intimidating, people are just intimidated. And honestly, that was really helpful for me to hear because I really do just try to show up in a kind way, in a loving way. But because we are mirrors to each other in this world, everyone's a mirror to each other. I've kind of realized some of my potency when it comes down to the mirror that I can be for other people completely unintentionally. um, and that's something I've just had to learn how to practice more healthy detachment with and just kind of move on from. Um, do I still have moments of frustration? Of course. And will those end up in my book? Of course. But that's my own outlet, my own way of processing um, and moving on and letting stuff out. So that's something that's been really interesting. And I don't know if y'all hear that. My cat is outraged that I've shut the door. How dare I shut the door? Um, but those of y'all with cats know it's sometimes just for the best because otherwise they'd be getting into all kinds of shenanigans. But I feel like that concept of healthy detachment is one that is, I would say, one of the most useful and liberating concepts that a person can possibly begin to practice and when I say detachment, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that something doesn't still bother you, perhaps. But with detachment, it is not identifying with something. It is not trying to control it. But you're simply allowing things and people to show up the way that they are, letting them show up the way that they are. And this goes for anything, whether it is like another person in a relationship with them, or a circumstance, or perhaps like a goal, even in some ways, like practicing that healthy detachment of like, I would really love for this to happen, but if it doesn't, it's not going to crush my soul. And maintaining your sense of power and I would say not not having that be an imbalanced thing when it comes down to um, the authority that you give other people or perhaps other things. I think that when we start to give our authority away and aren't practicing that self-sovereignty, that can also be kind of a dangerous territory to navigate into. So I would say with detachment, it's been this practice that I've been really trying to embody for the past, goodness, like I would say 3-ish years, maybe 3 to 4 years. I'm trying to remember when I was introduced to that concept, but it's been something I'm really grateful for and just continue to see the ways in which that practice shows up in my life and the different areas of my life. And I think when we are practicing that healthy detachment, it allows us to show up in a place of levity as well, because we're maybe not putting expectations on a circumstance or an outcome or trying to control or over control every little detail of the experience that we're in. And I think that's what allows us to ultimately co-create with the universe. Because I think when we are trying to attach and control every single detail of our lives, of a relationship, of perhaps like a goal or something we're trying to manifest, we're truly limiting ourselves. We're truly limiting the space in which that relationship or expectation, or sorry, goal or experience is able to take up space and grow and shift. And I think when we're able to practice that detachment and allow there to be more flow that isn't orchestrated by us, that is allowing for us to be in that co-creation relationship. We're in that balanced state of yin and yang. We're doing what we can and advocating for that masculine when we can. And we're also sitting back and allowing and being in that feminine when we can as well. So that's something that I'm really grateful for. And in my just journey with my femininity, have really been able to invite that concept into it. Because when it comes down to like dating specifically, I've even seen this with some of my friends too, where it's like being too in your masculine and wanting to I would say like initiate too much, or feeling like you have to do all the emotional labor, or I've seen this with clients as well, where they are not just like doing all the maybe like household chores and physical things, but also all the emotional labor as well. And so therefore they're not giving their partner space to also show up. Or perhaps they're attached to, or maybe too rigid in how they want certain ways to be. And then they are maybe hypercritical of their partner because of that rigidity. And then they're not giving their partner space to show up organically as themselves either. And this can sometimes even go down the slippery slope of becoming dehumanizing, because we are giving too much instruction, or maybe even commands, or expectations on how we want that person to show up, and then therefore letting ourselves down by that person not showing up in that way, because we're ultimately attached to that projection of what we think they should do. And instead of practicing that healthy detachment and just letting them show up, letting them love us in the way that's natural for them. And I think that that's something where like healthy detachment has really allowed me to just experience more pleasure, because I'm not putting too many parameters and like a fence around my pleasure of like, oh, like this is the way and this is the way and this is the other only way in which I can experience pleasure or experience love or whatever it is. And where yes, it's good to have like your needs and know like what your love languages are and your standards are, also being open to receive and have that open mind to really look and see and notice and witness how people organically want to show up for you as well. I think that that's really important. So good stuff. Good stuff. So with the looking towards the future, I certainly am excited to have a guest coming soon on this podcast. That's something that I'm very excited and grateful for when it comes down to this platform, is being able to connect with people from all over the world. I'm looking forward to hearing more from folks that I don't already know, because I would say majority of the guests I've had on my podcast have been people I've had a personal connection to in some way. But I'm looking forward to having some new guests on my podcast that I am not super familiar with, and just exploring and engaging with people from different walks of life, with different perspectives. I think that that's another way that we're able to practice that healthy detachment, is to, without like abandoning our values, still perhaps shift our perspective on some things and learn something new and expand our mind and expand perhaps our lens in which we see the world. And I feel like engaging and connecting with other people is one of the best ways in which we can do that. whether it's like directly through conversation or through art and music and other ways in which people have expressed themselves. So I'm really excited for having my future guests on this podcast, as well as these very intimate one-on-one sessions that we get to have. So again, thank you for listening. And I am also very grateful for, like I mentioned, my new book that I'm going to be writing, or already am writing, that I'm going to be publishing, I should say. And just the medicine that is for me in expressing myself, and the medicine that it can be for other people to read and to know that they are not alone in some of these thoughts that they might be having. Um, and then I'm just really excited for the future adventures that I'm going to get to go on with my partner, with my friends, with my family. There's definitely lots of travel on the horizon, and that's something that I have just grown to really love and appreciate, because that's another fantastic way that you're able to detach and go with the flow and um, become nourished from an experience, and to have your perspective shifted and changed a little bit. I feel like travel is so valuable in that way, where you can become exposed to different types of people, different atmospheres, environments, even so much as like the weather. I think that can be good to experience something different. So, and if anything, like if all you gain from a travel experience is just appreciation for your hometown, or where you're living, that's also a gain as well. I know my partner and I share this perspective, where it just, there's just nothing like coming home and just getting in your own bed, and just that sense of satisfaction. As much as we love to be on the road and exploring and having these adventures, there's just something about being cuddled up in bed and in that familiar safe space. It's really special. So very, very grateful for that. Um, and so yeah, stay tuned on my journey so far. So far we've already hit up Richmond and Tampa were a couple of spots, as well as just doing more fun adventures here in our Atlanta town. There's so much here in this city, so I'm very, very excited for that. And I would say I'm also just excited to continue to tap into this concept of the spectrum of who we are as people, and expressing the spectrum of who we are, and becoming just a true advocate for that, and a true advocate for being your most free self, your truest self, and expressing that openly no matter who you're around. And I know I say sometimes, like, be yourself, free yourself, and I really do believe that. And I just not just advocate for, but I truly believe that that is a motto, so to speak, that when embodied is so potent and real. Because when we are truly being ourselves, we are truly liberated and sovereign and freeing ourselves. And that's just such a special thing. It's very sacred. I think it's one of the deepest, purest acts of self-love as well. So I'm excited to share more concepts about that with you all. And I think, especially with women, I mean, I really appreciate everyone on, again, like the full spectrum of humanity, whether you identify as a woman or not. But I think those of us who are woman identifying, there is such a history of deep conditioning, when it comes down to what the like correct way to be a woman is, or should be, so to speak. And there's been all the way down to just like societal prosecution when it comes down to these like types of regulations, all the way down to actual life and death situations, historically and also recently, when it comes down to women who are showing up as their true selves and showing up as these powerful beings that we are, and independent beings that we deserve to be. And whether it is someone embracing like the stay-at-home mom, wife, domestic role and enjoying that, or someone who is happily unmarried or happily child free or happily, whatever the case may be, like how there's no correct or right way to be a woman, um, except for the way that you want to be. And I think that that's something that I just really hope I can continue to be a beacon and a light and a role model and a mentor and a leader in that kind of avenue of existing and showing up and having the courage to do so in this full spectrum of who I am, publicly, creatively, and clinically too. So that's something I certainly love to help my clients with, and something that I can see the ripple effect even with people I don't directly interact with, but just through social media or through this podcast, or other avenues like my books and whatnot, where in showing up as this um, unfiltered version of myself, however I feel like showing up that day or in that moment, how that it's okay to look different. It's okay to change. It's okay to grow. It's okay to be all these different versions at the same time, and how one does not take away from the other, and how um, in how do I say this? Say um, how the equal value each of those sides brings, not just to other people, but to themselves, and like just the visceral pleasure that comes from not holding back, um, is something that I say is sacred um, because it is. It's sacred as far as it is a spiritual experience, because we are not just operating from our mind or just operating from our body, but we're truly operating from that unified mind, body, spirit, soul, heart, all of all the different parts of ourselves when they're acting in this um, place of resonance and harmony, and there's that alignment through and through with ourselves. That is a beautiful spiritual experience to just get to feel that way, but feeling that on a regular basis and expressing that on a regular basis. Of course, it takes a little bit of work to get to that point, but it's possible and it's truly remarkable. And I can't wait to help you, whoever you are, just contemplate those concepts further, as well as continue my own journey in that very realm and share my musings, my findings, my experience with you all. So thank you for listening to me today. Thank you for listening to me for the past 2 years. And I just truly appreciate this platform and this community that we've built together, and look forward to connecting with you all more soon. Of course, if you have any questions, or if I can be a resource for you in any kind of way, please feel free to reach out at eclipseevolution.com, and please keep on the lookout for more episodes to come as we explore these concepts together. Again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Savannah Rose. This is Eclipse Evolution. Thank you so much. I look forward to chatting with you more soon. And bye for now.